So in this particular topic, we are going to see about kingdom Protista. So in the previous lectures, we are seeing biological classification, right? We might have seen about Monera, Protista, Plantae, Fungi, and Animalia, right? We are going to see. So as a starting point, we have seen Monera. So bacteria are the sole members of Monerans. So coming to Protista, these Protista are called as unicellular eukaryotes. So in the case of Monera, you might have seen they are the sole member of prokaryotes, right? But whereas Protista belong to eukaryotes. In the previous lectures, we have discussed what is the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. The students who have to have a continuity can look over that video and come back here. Coming to Protistan mode of nutrition, they have autotrophic mode of nutrition or heterotrophic. Autotrophic, we all know, they will produce their own foods. In the case of heterotrophic, they undergo even symbiosis and parasitism together. Okay. For example, symbiosis means mutualistic relationships, helpful for both of them. Whereas parasitism, we know, plus and minus. In the ecology lesson, we will come to know about these lectures even further. But as a simple note, I'm denoting here plus plus. If it is benefit for both of them, it is called what? Mutualism, plus and plus. Whereas plus for one organism and minus for another organism, it is called parasitism or predatorship. So in this case, Protista undergo parasitism. Concerning with the locomotion, see the previous video we have said what is the difference between movement and locomotion. So locomotion is none other than moving from one place to another place. Okay, either the organisms locomote through cilia or flagella. Cilia are the minute structures present in all over the body, whereas flagella is present one or two at the tip of the body, as you see in the euglena, the picture you observe here. And pseudopodia, the very classical diagram in biology, right? Guys, if anyone asks you to draw something in biology, you can very well close your eyes and draw amoeba. So those amoeba have a locomotion called pseudopodia. So what is pseudopodia? We can split this word and see. Pseudo means false. Pod, podia means what? Food. So the organisms which are having false food is called pseudopodia. So they adjust their body shape and they keep on moving. Coming to reproduction, there are two modes of reproduction in the case of Protista. They are asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Asexual in the case of binary, multiple, or spore. Binary fission means what? Splitting the cell into two equal halves. This is called binary. Whereas multiple means multiple cuts over the body, right? Spore formation means it is kind of a precursor to seeds, is called spores. Okay, so inside the organism there will be multiple kind of progenies and they will be released together and into the environment. Whereas syngamy is a kind of sexual reproduction in Protista. Protistans being intermediate between plants, animals, and fungus along with Monerans. See, look at here. We know Monera, Protista, Plantae, fungi, and Animalia, right? Yeah, these Protistans only serve as an intermediate between this Monera and all other things like plants, fungus, and animals. That's the reason they are classified in this way, like Protestant algae, Protestant fungi, and Protestant animals. And animals refer in the way of protozoans. Again, the Protestant algae are divided into three types, like dinoflagellates, chrysophytes, euglenoids, slime moulds. Okay, and protozoans are again further divided based upon their way of locomotion, like whether they are ciliated or flagellated, or they are moving through their amoeboid nature. Okay, we can see one by one in the forthcoming slides. So these dinoflagellates are none other than they are unicellular protists. They comprise of two flagella. As you see in the picture, you can see there are two flagella. These dinoflagellates are mostly marine plankton, but they are also found in their freshwater habitats. The photosynthetic dinoflagellates form one of the largest group of eukaryotic algae apart from diatoms. So these dinoflagellates are the major marine habitats. Okay, as the name suggests, dinoflagellates, they have two flagellas. Okay, and one of the flagella wraps around the transverse roof like a belt, and another flagellum projects behind the cell, present in the longitudinal groove. So one is present in the transverse groove, another is present in the longitudinal groove. The nucleus of the dinoflagellates have a special name called dikaryon. So we all know, right? The word karyon stands for nucleus, where karyon stands for nucleus. Whereas in the case of dinoflagellates, they have dikaryon, where the chromosomes are attached to the nuclear membrane and condensed throughout. So like all other eukaryotes, these dinoflagellates also have other organelles. Okay, but what's the drawback of this is they do not have histones. The DNA of protistans do not have histones, so no histones. Students, you can make a note of it. There is no histones in the case of dinoflagellates or protista altogether. The special property of this kind of dinoflagellates, they may found in the polluted ocean environment, causing red tides. Okay, as you see in the picture, you can see red tides. The drawback of this red tide, or the negative feature of this red tide, is they may release a toxin called saxitoxin, which might be highly injurious to the organisms present over it. So moving on from dinoflagellates, we have to know about chrysophytes. So look at the picture of the chrysophytes. These chrysophytes are called jewels of plant kingdom. Okay, see how beautifully they are looking. Because of their cell wall ornamentation and the presence of golden brown chromatophores, these are called jewels of plant kingdom. Together they are called as diatoms. So these diatoms are desmids. Particularly the desmids are called as golden algae. Desmids are called as what? Golden algae. These kind of golden algae are mostly photosynthetic, and they have indestructible cell wall due to the presence of silica. So because of their high nature of silica, they can even hold dynamics. So that's strong they are. Silica, we all know, right? Formula for sand. So this diatomaceous earth is a deposit for the cell wall that gets accumulated over the cell wall, and it is highly used in the polishing industries. Further, the specialty of dinoflagellate, we have forgotten point to say, these dinoflagellates only occupy in the coral reefs. Actually, corals are made up of polyps, we all know, right? Polyps are what? In animal kingdom, they belong to the thing called Cylindrata. Polyps belong to phylum Cylindrata. These coral polyps have inside them tiny algae called as zooxanthellae. That is these dinoflagellates, which live in the coral polyps. They both together will have a mutualistic relationships. So coral polyps will provide the zooxanthellae with a protected environment, whereas the nutrients they need to be carried out the photosynthesis will be provided by them. So there is a mutualistic relationship between both polyps and zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae. Here the polyp is an animal. As I said, this animal belong to which category? They belong to phylum Cylindrata. Phylum Cylindrata. Whereas zooxanthellae belong to protistans. They are called dinoflagellates. Dinoflagellates. Good. To explain more about this, you can see inside the coral polyps, okay, around the cell, you may observe the zooxanthellae is getting habitat, okay, around the layer. So zooxanthellae, these algae only giving the different colors of the polyps, right? Whereas polyps give production in the turn in the mutualistic environment. Moving on to euglenoids. These euglenoids, they are the intermediate between plant and animals. So it's a missing link, right? Okay. And the particular properties of these euglenoids are they are photosynthetic flagellated protists. As the name suggests, they are flagellated. You can see the flagella over there. As I said, they are linked between the plants and animals, but they do not have a cell wall. Whereas we can find the presence of a pellicle, okay, the protein-rich pellicle over there, which makes their body very flexible instead of cell wall. That's the reason they will be highly locomoted. Like animals, they behave with the locomotion. In the absence of sunlight, they can move on to another places where they can find the food, as they behave like a heterotroph. As they behave like a heterotroph. Moving on to slime molds, which are the protestant fungus. When the saprophytic protists, they feed on the organic materials on the decaying leaves. Okay, as you observe here, they will feed on decaying leaves. That's a unique nature of saprophytes, right? Which feed on dead and decayed matter. And the aggregation of the slime molds is called as plasmodium, and they form under the favorable conditions. Whereas in the unfavorable conditions, fruiting bodies like spores will develop in the case of plasmodium. Whereas the spores can survive for a very long adverse conditions. The same thing you can observe in the case of amoeba. See, my dear friends, amoeba is an organism which is an aquatic based organism, right? They live in ponds. Okay, the general mode of division for this amoeba is binary fission. They will divide among them into two equal halves. But what happens if there is any unfavorable condition? Okay, if the condition is not unfavorable, for example, the pond where they live is polluted by nearby chemical effluents. Imagine there is an industry nearby it, and they secrete the chemical effluents into the water, and the amoeba over there won't produce the food or won't produce their progenies at the particular time. Instead, what they will do, they will create a cyst around their body. They will create a cyst is none other than a protected layer. Okay, and this particular process is called as what? Encystation. This particular process is called encystation. After this unfavorable condition return to favorable, favorable in the sense, the chemical industries might have stopped secreting their effluents somewhat, and the lake have been rejuvenated. Once a lake have been rejuvenated, the amoeba will turn into favorable condition. But when this favorable condition, the amoeba doesn't undergo binary fission again, because over the 1 week period of time, the amoeba might have lost a lot of progenies, right? The valuable time have been lost. To compensate that, they will produce a lot of spores. Okay, and you can guess the answer of those spores. Those spores are called as pseudopodiospores. Those spores are called as pseudopodiospores. My dear friend, the reason for saying amoeba over here is same amoeba and the slime molds will undergo spore formation during their unfavorable conditions. Spore formation during their unfavorable conditions. So always in biology, try to relate with the previous topics. So if we have a lot of connections, the memory will be increased in the biology lessons. Same way. So moving on, we have amoeboid, flagellated, ciliated, sporozoans in the case of protist. In the case of protist, protozoans. So we came to the last part of our protista. We have seen about protist and algae, protist and fungi, and finally protist and protozoans. And these protist and protozoans again are divided into what? How many types? 4 types, like amoeboid, flagellated, ciliated, sporozoans. As I mentioned before of the class, the way they locomote, in that way they have been divided. It is self-explanatory, right? So moving on. These protozoans is a causative agent for a number of diseases like bacteria and fungus or virus. Protozoans is a very important leading disease causative agent. For example, Entamoeba histolytica may cause amoebiosis. Okay, Lamblia will cause diarrhea. Plasmodium, a very famous one, right? Because Plasmodium protozoan is carried highly by mosquitoes, that too particularly Anopheles mosquitoes. An interesting fact that only female mosquitoes bite us. The general food for mosquitoes are not blood. They have blood for the growing progenies. Okay. Instead, these mosquitoes will always feed on plant sap. They will suck the plant. Blood is an additional nutrient for the pregnant mosquitoes. Okay, the mosquitoes which are going to lay eggs. Leishmania donovani, a kind of important thing which will cause a visceral disease. Same way, vaginalis, which affect the urinogenital tract of females, sexually transmitted disease. Whereas tsetse fly, it's a very important fly which causes an interesting disease called African sleeping sickness, where the patients will keep on sleeping. After a couple of slides we can see it detailing. And watery diarrhea will be caused by Cryptosporidium, and Toxoplasma gondii cause toxoplasmosis, where the indigestion of the meat will occur. So these are the representations of those organisms you can observe, right? Entamoeba histolytica, Trypanosoma gambians, Leishmania donovani, which causes cancer, Entamoeba, which causes amebiosis. So these organisms you can have a look over. As I said before, this is African sleeping sickness. African sleeping sickness. It is fun, right? Patients can keep on sleeping. What's the problem over there? Is it similar to coma? No. However, sleeping is not a good sign, right? Because the sleeping over here occurs due to the presence of this pathogen, a protozoan called trypanosoma. This trypanosoma is carried by the tsetse fly. What happens is our brain get inflamed. Again, one important trick I'm going to teach you guys. The inflammation of brain here it is called as encephalitis. Encephalitis. So in biology, don't forget if the word ends with itis, it is itis means inflammation. For example, encephalon means brain. So inflammation of brain is called encephalitis. Whereas I'll give another task. If it is an inflammation of liver, what it is called as? It is called as hepatitis. Because the word hepato stands for what? Liver. The same way, if it is inflammation of heart, it is called carditis. Because heart is called as carditis, right? Cardium. That too particularly endocarditis. Same way, if it is inflammation of meninges, what is called meninges, my dear friends? Meninges is none other than brain cover of the brain. Okay, it is called meningitis. So the list is endless. So whatever ends with it is, never forget, it is called it is an etymology for inflammation. Etymology for what? Inflammation. So in the inflammation in the brain, in the case of African sleeping sickness, the patients keep on sleeping. So hope you have enjoyed the lecture, my dear friends. Thanks for your patient listening. Thank you. So far, we have seen Kingdom Monera and Kingdom Protista. In future classes, we'll be dealing with Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Animalia, exclusively of each of their classes and with examples. So my dear friends, stay tuned with Mr. Bio and Mrs. Physics for easy exam clearance. We are always there with you. Thank you, friends.